Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. I'm your host, Art Stapleton, and that's time of year where, back by popular demand, NFL Network, Peter Schrager, Jersey guy through and through, just like me, and he has found a little bit of time for you guys to talk Giants, the NFL draft. So without further ado, my man, P. Schrags. Peter, what's going on, man?
What's up, buddy? Jersey guy through and through, but more than Jersey guy. Grew up a Giants fan, diehard Giants fan, was in the building against the Chargers, I want to say 94, when people were throwing snowballs on the field, the low times, and then obviously have been alive to see multiple Giants Super Bowl rings. So anytime you, who I think is one of the best in the biz, ask me to come on, I'm going to make it a window to do so, my friend.
Thanks, Schrags. Appreciate it. And Peter will be a central figure in NFL Network's draft coverage this week on site in Detroit. Make sure you check him out throughout the week. Obviously, he's all over social media. P. Schrags on X/Twitter and his mock drafts. I'm sure you got another one pumping out before the draft this week, right?
Yeah, I went big on the first one, roll the dice, shake it up, everyone freak out. And now I'm like, all right, do I get more conservative on the second one? Because there are so many wild rumors right now, and some of it is real, some of it's not. But like, I put McCarthy to the Giants with a trade up at 4, and the amount of people that told me I was an idiot, I was crazy, obviously is infinite. However, what's Schefter saying today on Monday? Well, the Giants look like they could be a team that's trading up. What's everyone else saying today? Well, the Giants have made it call. Like, I don't spew bullshit. I honestly don't. And I wouldn't just do that for clicks, which a lot of Giants fans assumed I was. The Giants have done extensive work on these quarterbacks, extensive work. So I don't think they're spending all of Mr. Mayer's money and spending all this time looking at quarterbacks if they weren't at least interested. So I thought McCarthy would be a good one at 4. I know they had an amazing meeting with him the night before Easter, and I'll give you some more details on that. And they were blown away by McCarthy. Now, they might like May more. They might like Daniels more. But quarterback is definitely an area of interest for the Giants. And if they're sitting there at 6 and there's a quarterback, I think it's going to be quarterback. Do they move up and offer up future picks? And this year's – that's where it gets a little tricky. And I'm not sure they can offer the same stuff that the Vikings can.
Totally agree with you. And you mentioned the night before Easter. I kind of made that comment to somebody else. I know they had a workout, I believe it was on Easter Sunday out in Ann Arbor. So they were there Saturday and then Sunday. So you're telling me that the Giants, for the sake of a smoke screen, are going to spend Easter Sunday away from their families just to pretend that they're interested in J.J. McCarthy. Well, if you're selling me that bag, I'm not taking it.
Yeah, and like, even if it was just to get to know him, you could pick any other day. Like, they went out the night before Easter. They went to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. They had like a 3-hour dinner. And I don't know if you've had a chance to meet McCarthy. I got to meet him at the Combine, and I'm sure people in the media, Michigan has a big media contingent, whether it be Schefter or Eisen or wherever you look. He is the polished class president of this draft class, and that you meet with him, you almost think, all right, could this kid be for real? He talks about meditation. He talks about leadership. He talks about, his goals as a selfless, servant to his football team, stuff that you want to hear. It's almost as if like AI created his look, his college resume, all of it. I had, a lot of people punched holes in that and been like, yeah, but can he throw a football? And can he win a game without 18 pros on his team? And I get that, but you can only drive the car with the keys that you're given. And he was given an amazing coach, an amazing offense, and an amazing bunch of players around him. And he went 27-1 in college. So, is he worthy of the 4th overall pick? We'll see 5 years from now. But if the Giants were to trade up to 4 and take J.J. McCarthy, I think there's a reality that could happen. It could be at 5, they trade up with the Chargers and take J.J. McCarthy, or they sit 6 and take J.J. McCarthy. But if there's a reality that J.J. McCarthy's not even there at 6, don't come screaming at me who said they would have to trade up to get him. Like, they'll take Alt or Neighbors or a Dunze, and they'll be fine at 6, and we'll applaud the pick. We'll give him A on draft grades and blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying, quarterback is a reality as far as the Giants go into this draft, as we're talking the week of the draft.
And you made the point that, look, however much they like JJ McCarthy and would consider trading up or sitting there and taking McCarthy, that doesn't mean that they don't like Drake May more. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't take Drake May, given the choice, Drake May or JJ McCarthy. But we all know these drafts and the way things happen. I mean, teams have their boards set up. Caleb Williams could quite frankly be the number one player on the Giants board. They also know they're not getting Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is going to Chicago. I remember thinking back when Andrew Luck was at the top of the board and Jerry Reese made the joke about, well, we would take Andrew Luck if he was on the top of our board. Well, he is on the top of your board. Yeah, and everybody was like, whoa, wait a minute. But the reality is that teams know, okay, this player is likely slotted there. Jaden Daniels likely slotted to Washington. Maybe he's not. Maybe he is there. So they got to put that homework in. I want to talk one thing before we really dive into where you see this, top 6 playing out. And, I love your stories. Your stories are great. Just the idea of the bullshit. You mentioned it. The idea that, people don't know what's going on. And I part of it, I blame fans. I blame social media because now you can create a Twitter account and tag either NFL or Insider on it and people buy it. It's like they just want to buy information in whatever anyone says, they're going to consume it. But also it's kind of a responsibility of knowing the reporters that
who to follow. It's not our fault, right? Exactly. Like who are you following?
And if I'm following Peter Schrager, I know Peter Schrager is not being paid or assigned by NFL Network to get clicks on his mock draft. His mock draft is.
I appreciate this. I also, if you follow my stuff, I'm not the guy who's so tied into agents. I'm not the one who's going to be sending out some tweet in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon about a 6th round prospect saying how, he's got 7 visits and you want to sniff some agent seeds? Find those tweets. Find the ones where some random guy you haven't heard about is suddenly garnering the interest of 17 teams and you got to keep it. That's an agent desperate asking a favor from someone and someone in our world saying, yeah, I don't know, what's it worth to me? Yeah, okay, fine. Day 3 pick is suddenly a hot prospect and is getting interest from da-da-da-da-da. Those are the ones where the agents are trading favors and all that stuff. For us, and I include you and I include so many of our colleagues who, live and die with this stuff or live and breathe with this stuff, it doesn't do us any good to put out fake stuff. Those clicks, our bosses aren't going to necessarily, praise us for clicks if the information's wrong. What we get praised for is years after years after years of having a reputation of trust. Now, that said, I have never gotten a Joe Shane 1st round pick right. I got both Thibodeau and Neal wrong. And I got Deonte Banks. I didn't even have in the 1st round. So take what you will. Know that I do my best at trying to garner information, and I'll try to share it the best way I can. But I am not going to say that whatever I say is gospel. But I'll tell you, I'm doing it honestly. I'm not doing it to rile up emotions or get Twitter likes or get a bigger following on Instagram. Quite frankly, I'd like to be under the radar, get it right, and then year after year to stack those chips so that people are like, all right, when Schrager talks, we listen.
Absolutely. And I think you accomplish that every year. If you're going around trying to judge people and reporters based on how many correct picks they get in the mock draft, well, we all know the mock draft, we know what the purpose of the exercise is. And you're trying to educate people, but you're also trying to let people know this is how things can play out based on quality, validated information I'm getting. I'm not just throwing stuff. Hey, this time, let me throw this in there to see if somebody will click and go crazy. It's just this time of year. It's what it is, Tregs. It's this time of year. It's also, this is a good line that someone told me. First and foremost, all this draft stuff, as serious as it is for fans, they love it. All of our stuff, a lot of it is entertainment. And this is fun. This is fun to play the games and to simulate and do it all. For us, it's a job, and we've got to try to sift through the garbage and what's real. But at the end of the day, if you're a fan, you're not on the Big Blue Interactive message board. You're not all over Reddit. You're not doing all that because it's life and death. You're doing it because it's fun and it's a distraction, and it's cool to play these games in your head. And by the end of the day,
whoever they take on Thursday with the 6th overall pick, barring they don't trade down, is going to be a cornerstone piece to the New York Giants for the next 5 years.
And the thing is, and I know you're a part of it, so you really can't say it, but the other reality is that for the league views this as entertainment, like, and how serious it is as the show. And we know Roger Goodell has built this show for the NFL Network and for ESPN. So network partners, there's a reason why we get into the idea of you guys are paid, not you, but also the insiders and everywhere else are paid to get all the information up to a certain point on Thursday. And then it's basically, I don't care what you know, Peter. I don't care if you're told that the Bears are taking, me to be their first guy. You're not going to report it because we are going to have our show broadcast that news. And that's a part of this that I know. I'm not a network partner, so I know fans are upset. Sometimes they feel like we're spoiling picks. It's not so much spoiling picks.
Let me get into the sausage of it. I mean, it's like,
yeah, sure.
A couple years ago, there was a team that I knew was making a pick at the top. I'm not going to say which one. That was not what everyone had. And I knew it a couple hours before the draft. I knew it an hour before the draft. And we were told, don't tweet that out. Like, this is a show. And I agree with that because it's fun to be surprised once in a while. But there are reporters online whose job is not to serve the show or to serve the shield. Every year for years, Jason La Canfora, Mike Florio, Albert Breer, guys who do not work for the NFL Network currently, maybe they did in the past, but it's not on them to keep the suspense for the viewer at home. Everyone at the league, 32 teams, there is a computer that spits out the picks, and then you've got sources who will know at the teams about 30 seconds before you find out on TV. Those people might be feeding those picks to those individuals on Twitter, and it's their job to report it, or if they want to do it, they can. And last year, remember, like Shams Charania was like tweeting out picks. I'm like, all it takes is one source at one of the 32 teams who has the feed, and you can do this. If you're a viewer, I would say this: don't be on Twitter the night of the draft, because I do think it's a fun thing to watch. And at that point, let your hands off the wheel. You could dissect it all after, at least till the Giants pick. Don't sit online. It will be spoiled. There are going to be things that are spoiled. And it's just, you're going to find out from a Twitter feed. Like, is that how you want to find it out? So to me, as a fan of football, I understand those guys' jobs, and I understand your job, and I understand Paul Schwartz's job, and I get what Tom Rock's got to do. But if I'm talking to fans, not because I work for the NFL Network, the NFL Draft's going to do fine whether I make this plea on the All In podcast with Art Stapleton or not. It's kind of a fun experience to be surprised once in a while. And I think no matter what the pick is right now from the Giants at 6, or if they move up, it's going to be a surprise, at least a slight one. And I think you're going to enjoy that more.
I totally agree. And I think it's just basically, how do you want to consume your information? And, and that's just it. I mean, you want to take guys off of the alerts. You want to put me on mute that night. I mean, I'm going to go, I don't want to spoil the experience for people who come to me for information and for my coverage. But, it's a fine line between spoiling, like you said, how you're getting that information. If you feel as though you're getting that information, in a backhanded way where, there's a producer who sees the name and you're in commercial at NFL Network and they haven't announced the pick yet, and you want to spoil it just for the sake of, I'm going to screw the NFL Network. Well, you know what? That's on you as a reporter. But if you get a call from someone or a text from someone in the front office that says it's Thibodeau, well,
do you think there's a difference?
You know what? I do.
Because this is a great, theoretical, because to me, if it's from a producer or if it's from the front office, if the team's on the clock and you announce is it like great report? I don't know. It's great reporting if you do it on Monday or Tuesday and you say, hey, here's their draft board. But
I guess you'll never know, right, Peter? I mean, you'll never know where a person gets information from. I mean,
totally.
At this point, I could tell you back when Thibodeau was the pick, I got a text from somebody within the organization that said it's Thibodeau. So I tweeted.
I love this. I love this talk. This is like behind the scenes, and fans probably like this more than us just talking.
It was after the Jets picked Sauce Gardner. And
Okay.
so
the Giants were on the board at 5. Everyone's thinking they're going offensive line, and they take Thibodeau.
Right. And I tweeted, holy hell, the Giants are taking Thibodeau. Because if you remember going into that draft, there were the serious reports at least 2 weeks out, and no one really knew how Joe Shane was going to operate. You knew it because you knew his history from Buffalo, but for a lot of us, it was his first draft. The idea that, there were reports from people who claimed to be plugged in saying the Giants don't like Thibodeau. Yeah. So, they basically, I don't know if it was a smokescreen.
I didn't know that. I was surprised when they took Thibodeau. I thought, who was the other offensive lineman? It was Neal, and there was another one that was
Ekwonu
from NC State. And they waited, and he goes to NC State, and then they kind of take Neal. Neither one of those guys have been outstanding by any means.
Right.
But at the time, we thought, oh my gosh, the NC State guy is slipping. He was supposed to be first overall prospect. He's sitting there at 5. Take him. And they took Thibodeau and the whole, what was the kid's name? Sam
Prince.
Sam Prince. It was awesome, and it was great. But Thibodeau, remember, was supposed to be a quixotic guy, enigmatic, didn't fit the Giant buttoned up, suit and tie, way, this guy. So I remember being surprised when they made that pick, but I also wasn't working on the telecast and go out of my way to not necessarily engage and take the night off and enjoy the NFL draft's first night.
Right. All right. So let's talk pressure points in that top 6. I know it's been ad nauseum, the idea of where we're at, but for you, I got to imagine that it's Caleb 1, and despite the, I don't even know what you want to call it, the last week or so about Jaden Daniels, it sounds to me like Jaden Daniels at Washington is number 2. I don't know if you agree, but to me, obviously the pressure point is at 3. Do the Patriots even risk moving away from a quarterback? When you're assessing the top 5, where is your spot when you said, you know what, this is going to really dictate what happens down the, for the rest of the top 10 at least?
I think it's QB 1. I think it's QB 2, and I still think it's Daniels as we record this on Monday to Washington. I don't think the Patriots will trade the pick. And they have to be absolutely blown. We're talking about like more than what the Niners gave up to move up to 3 a couple of years ago when they took Trey Lance. But I think it's Patriots, 3 quarterback, and then I think 4 is interesting. If 4 was any other team that had a quarterback, which Arizona does, I would say 4 is the pressure point trade. And that's what I had in my mock draft the first time around. I had them trading it out.
Yep.
But I've heard from a lot. This is why we did 2 mock drafts. The first mock draft, I had Arizona trading back and getting a bunch from the Giants moving up. Arizona has 3 picks in the top 35. How many picks do you actually need? At some point, take a blue chip player. And that's the feedback I've gotten from a lot of people, that Arizona is actually not as inclined to trade back as many thought they were coming into this thing. But they'll take Harrison if he's on the board, or they'll take a Dunze or Neighbors or whoever their number 1 guy is. And then 5, the Chargers become the red alarm trade out team. However, I have heard from multiple GMs who have spoken to the Chargers that it's going to have to take a Godfather trade for them to move out of 5. What does that mean? It means what it would typically do to move up to 2 or 3, like that. And obviously the player would be for McCarthy at 5. Do the Vikings give up the 11, the 23, 2 future firsts, a later second? Like maybe they put themselves in such a corner that they have to, and that's what they have to do to get JJ McCarthy. Or are you the Giants saying, you know what? We want JJ McCarthy. What's it going to take to move up 1 spot? Do you want next year's first rounder? That sounds crazy, but that might be what it takes. So I think 5, but new GM, new head coach. They already have a quarterback. That makes the Chargers very interesting at 5.
So at 5 at this point, I mean, I agree with you with the whole blue chip, player at 4 with Arizona. Like, if you don't believe in Harrison Jr., that's one thing, but someone's got to come and blow these teams away right now. And I almost think a lot of this stuff is being generated. If you're a Monty Ossenfort or you're a Joe Ortiz, why aren't you putting things out there or having people put things out there? Yeah, they're going to have to get blown away. So come with the deals. I mean, it only
it's not even in the media. That's the other GM. So I've heard that the Chargers have let it be known, not from the Chargers or from other GMs. The Chargers letting it be known, like, we need it. We the 5th overall pick with Justin Herbert. Like, we'll gladly take Joe Alt, or we'll gladly take Fuaga. Like, the Chargers, they're apparently like telling everyone like, we don't need to trade this pick either. Like we could keep it, but if you want to talk, it's going to take X, Y, and Z.
So let's talk Giants at 6 then. Let's say you're set for your second, mock. I'm assuming that you're probably going to hold true at least until that 5th pick, like you said. So let's just go no trades, which would blow people away, right? But the Giants are sitting there at 6, and there's the McCarthy debate, which we've already talked about. The idea of there is interest in McCarthy. How much? I'm not sure, but let's go to the receiver aspect of it. Let's say Alt or one of the tackles goes 5, and now you're sitting there with Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, or do the Giants want someone to come up and kind of take that pick from them and move back a couple spots and then feel like they can still play around? I think it's getting cute, but I think Joe Schoen is very comfortable in moving around on draft night to see what he's going to do. What are you feeling if the Giants don't end up with a quarterback in that spot? Is it as simple as take the best receiver there, or do you think that there could be some maneuverability for what they have at stake with only 6 picks on draft night?
It's so fun because it's a chessboard, and you've got 2 different ways to look at this. You've got it as a vertical, which is you stack each position. And I've talked to all these, like this is not secret stuff, but you stack your position. And then last week you do it called horizontal. Then it's like, all right, well, what's our order of the overall board in the first round? Like if this guy's there, if it's Neighbors versus Alt, who do we like more? Like no more funny business of, well, who do you like more? If we're on the clock, are we taking Neighbors or Alt? So if I'm the Giants, we know that, quarterback. So let's assume that you have 3 quarterbacks off the board. You're saying that McCarthy does go 5. So you're saying Harrison 4, McCarthy 5. Is that what you're saying?
I guess in that situation we could look at it but one of 2 ways. I mean, if we're convinced, and I don't think you're convinced that Minnesota is going to all of a sudden, empty the bank and say we're going to give you 4 first-round picks to go up and get McCarthy at 5. So let's say for the sake that McCarthy doesn't go off. So McCarthy is sitting there too at 6. So it's McCarthy, the receivers, or my other aspect is, does Joe Schoen, if he's not 100% sold on McCarthy, does Minnesota come up to the Giants spot? And can the Giants pry away 11
23 and right? I mean, it's entirely possible. Now I think they would take McCarthy at 6. I
do.
I am out in front on this in the way that I've put myself out there with no parachute, and next year I might lose the faith of a lot of Giants fans. If McCarthy is on the board at 6 or May's on the board at 6 and they take Neighbors or Odunze or trade back, I'll gladly say I read this thing wrong. I can't say enough how the Giants, I think, look at quarterback above all other positions in this draft class, and I think McCarthy's included. And then you look at Joe Alt. If Joe Alt is there at 6, they have to think long and hard. Look, I think Joe Schoen would never say this, Dable would never say this, but I don't think Evan Neal has been a home run, and I think you could kick Neal inside, and then you get Andrew Thomas and Joe Alt for the next 5 years under contract, Evan Neal at guard, and it's like, well, whoever plays quarterback at least is behind a pretty good offensive line. And then wide receiver, I don't know how they stack it, Neighbors and Odunze, but to me, if it's one of those guys and they pick them, and I'll give them an A+ because those guys are all blue chip receivers. But just historically, with the exception of Odell, I don't have a long history of the Giants just being like, let's get the star wide receiver,
Well, they didn't really pick the guy that they ended up trading to the Chiefs a couple of years ago. That was just a myth. We don't want to talk. Giants fans don't need to talk about that. The idea,
forgot about Tony.
Yeah. In a trade back that the Giants not only missed on Devontae Smith because they allowed the Eagles to hop over
Micah Parsons too,
passed over Micah Parsons, and then they could have taken Rashawn Slater. And instead, they took Kadarius Toney when they moved back. So they had the
Super Bowl champion Kadarius Toney 2-time.
Right. Two rings. He's got 2 rings.
He's got as many rings as Eli.
It's you were worried about losing the confidence of Giants fans. Right there, you may have lost the confidence of Giants fans. Although there's still Giants fans.
I know. He had that game against the Cowboys where he had 189 yards and got tossed. And he had a game against the Saints that they won. And Tony was absolutely like still Giants fans will bring those 2 games up. And they're like,
no doubt.
The young Joker.
Yeah. Well, and now they've got now they've got other superheroes. Now they bring Spider Burns on
Yes.
for the Giants. Where do you, when you look big picture now, where the Giants are? I'm under the impression that I know how you feel about Joe Shane and Brian Dable. You came on here when they were in the midst of their GM and coaching search, the idea of talking about how you believed in those guys and what they brought to the table. Going into year 3, I'm on the record as saying I don't believe their seats are as hot as what people are saying. I don't believe ownership wants to go through another cycle where they have to find another GM or a head coach. But from what you know around the league, I mean, there was a lot of speculation when Dable had to fill his coaching staff, the idea that coaches couldn't commit to coming to Dable because they didn't know if he was going to be here beyond this season, and all the flux and all that stuff that took place. From your perspective, when the Giants come up in your conversations, what's the mood? What's the temperature as far as what people think about what Shane and Dable are trying to build going into year 3?
It's a lot of we'll see, because year 1 it was like they could do no wrong, and year 2 everything went awry. And you're talking about not only on the field, but like that Wink Martindale situation was so ugly and so public. And it wasn't as ugly like between the two guys. It was just the fact that like you're hearing stuff from Glazer, and then it actually turned out to be true. And then he gets the game ball, and it became like this drama that no one. And now it of course ends with Wink is out and bring in from the outside. Shane Bowen is coming in, and it's like, all right. I think there's a little bit of like, let's wait and see, but I don't envision, and barring a 2-15 season, I don't see them blowing this whole thing up again.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, everyone wants to point to what they had. I think John Mara has a ton of regrets for how things played out post Tom Coughlin and what happened with Ben McAdoo and what happened with Pat Shurmur, just because of Gettleman's involvement, and then the Gettleman and Judge thing and the way that went down that last year. I mean, people didn't realize how bad the relationship between the head coach and the general manager was in Judge's last year. And then, when you're going to hire a new general manager, you can't bring back a head coach that had become the laughingstock in the NFL the last couple of weeks of the season. And I think insiders who knew the Giants knew that some of the things Joe was doing publicly in games, the whole, quarterback sneak was basically
Jake Fromm.
With Jake Fromm, it was to make Gettleman look bad and say, look, this is what you did to me. You gave me Jake Fromm, which is who I didn't want to replace, Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon. So I think it's kind of crazy. So when you're looking at the whole aspect of it, what about the idea? Let's say we're in agreement that the Giants are seriously considering quarterbacks. Is it so outrageous that if you miss out on who would be your top 4, and then you get into the Michael Penix and Bo Nix conversations and even the Spencer Rattler, where are you on that? Like, do you think the idea of going for one of those guys, that the drop-off is so steep that it wouldn't make sense? Because I got my teaser for my final mock on Wednesday.
Okay.
McCarthy, I end up I'm going to have, I think, Odunze. I'm making the decision between Odunze and McCarthy.
Neighbors? Odunze and McCarthy. Okay.
His Neighbors I had going off at 5, and then all ended up going to 7. So I went the receiver in that spot because I wanted to see how
receiver overall. See, I just feeling like with knowing the Giants, I feel like the Giants would go alt over the receiver. That's interesting debate.
It is. And I just have that feeling that they're not ready to give up on Evan Neal. Now, it could be a big mistake that they're going to, but I had them, I'm looking at trying to trade back into the back end of the first round, similar to what the Ravens did for Lamar.
Yeah.
And I don't think Penix is going to be there. I don't know about you, but I like the idea of Penix and the Raiders. He seems like he would be an Antonio Pierce guy. Like I think they love
13 is early though.
It is. It's very early. But would it be the first time that somebody goes?
No, we've seen it. A quarterback kind of. I guess like Tebow and Manziel went like early, and those were ones that everyone was like, "Wow!" But
that's true.
13 Penix. Bo Nix, I think, is getting a lot of love right now in the last couple of weeks. I don't know about Giants for either one of those guys. And then Rattler is like this backstop that I talk to every team. They're like, yeah, and then in the second round, Rattler. I'm like, well, he's not going to go to all of you guys in the second round, you know?
You're right. Everybody looks at, well, we could always wait on Spencer.
We can just wait and get Rattler. Well, no, one team's going to take him, and then Rattler's off the board.
You know, but at that point, if you're the Giants, like, are you really just scrambling just for the sake to say you're bringing in a quarterback? Or, you know, if you miss out on your top guys and you say, you know what, we made those decisions, you just roll it over to next year. I mean, that's just it's not what the fans are going to want, and they're going to take some heat, but you have to have some conviction if you're Joe Schoen. You need to have your board the way it is, and that's the way it is.
I think Giants fans too, from me to you, like, if I had them trading up to 3 with the Patriots and getting Drake May, they're doing flips. If I have them going to 4 and get JJ McCarthy, they're freaking out. Like, we don't know May versus McCarthy. Teams are stacking their board themselves. Is May a higher rated prospect than McCarthy? Yes, right now he is. But 2 years from now, we could be looking at JJ McCarthy as one of the best quarterbacks based on the situation, based on the coaching. So, like, I think we build these guys up in our heads, and we have these orders, and this guy's got to be better than that guy. And then when someone's taken before another player, we're like, whoa, wait a second. What do you mean? That's not, whose board were you basing it on? The mock drafts, you know, from January? No. So if, you know, the drop off from May to McCarthy might not be big, and then the drop off from McCarthy to Nix and Penix might not be huge either, but the way we create it in our heads, we're like, well, no one's got Penix going top 5, so it can't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like Bo Nix ahead of Penix for the Giants, just for the simple fact that Penix strikes me as a clean pocket passer, whereas I think Nix getting out kind of fits a little bit more of what Dable wants from his quarterback. So we'll see if it turns out to be that it's off the top 4, and then they're looking at it. I like Nix over Penix. So listen, your coverage, your involvement starts day 2, day 3. I mean, you're involved on day 1, but you'll be on the camera. Everybody will see you starting Friday night, right?
It's interesting. It's actually interesting. So they're sending us Good Morning Football is now, on hiatus. There's a whole you could read about all that. I don't know if you've written extensively on the Good Morning Football beat, but it's on hiatus. The show will be opening up again in LA. Whatever. That's down the road. But for this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they're doing Good Morning Football. So I'll be on the air Thursday morning from Detroit, Friday morning from Detroit, then also Friday night, and then all day Saturday. I'm one of like the 4 guys on the panel, which is great.
So are you the Good Morning Football with the is it the usual cast and crew?
It's me and Kyle in Detroit, McCourty, and then Jane Slater is the host because Erdahl is out on maternity leave. Congratulations, Jamie.
Great. Well, I'll be enjoying to check you guys out. I'm a big fan. I'm invested.
I appreciate you, man. You're cool, dude. Always have been so good to me. Going back to me writing that book on Victor Cruz in 2011, you were such an important person in helping me, having covered his high school career. So you and I have had a great relationship. But I would say this: I'm going in. This is Monday. We're recording this. I don't know what the Giants are doing at 6. I try my best, and hopefully the listeners here know that I put a great value in what you report, and there's so many great reporters on the Giants beat, the ones that I respect, and it's like I take a lot of my cues from you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. Before I let you go, I'll hit you with 2. Day 2, give me your favorite guy for the Giants.
Oh. Yeah. I did a whole exercise where I was like, give me 1 second here. I'm looking at my phone. I'll tell you the name of the guy that I like for the Giants, because I have my guys and I talk to a lot of different GMs, but the player that I like for the Giants, I'm going to give you this one right here. Put it down in pen somewhere. Ready? Here's his name. All right. I wrote this all down because I was doing all this. All right. Let's go. Theo Johnson, tight end, Penn State. Put it in pen.
In day 2 or day 3? Day 2. You think he'll squeeze it?
I think it's day 2. I think that's day 2. I think it's late day 2. I think that's Theo Johnson, Penn State, tight end. He's one of my favorites, and I think he's higher up on boards than people have him. And I think the Giants, that's a position. I don't know what's going on with our man Waller. So let's just say, let's get some security here. Theo Johnson, put it in pen. Giants are drafting Theo Johnson, Penn State.
Awesome. Well, the fans demanded it. Peter Schrager to come back on All In. I'm sure this won't be the last time, but I want to thank you again for squeezing us into your schedule, a busy schedule. Check out Peter this week on NFL Network. He will be all over it. Obviously, Good Morning Football on Thursday, Friday. That'll be awesome. And then Peter all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know Schrags is going to have information for Giants fans, but the draft in general. So I appreciate you joining me. Thank you. You are always all in, and we're all in with Peter Schrager.
I would just say this. If the Giants do end up with a quarterback on Thursday, I beg everyone, tune in Friday because I think we'll have a really fun show. Just that's all I'm saying. Just Friday, if the Giants have McCarthy at quarterback, we'll devote 3 hours to it. Unlike some of our other other networks who have to spread the love and talk Cowboys for 60 minutes. We'll talk Giants. I promise you that.
Awesome. Well, for Peter Schrager, I'm Art Stapleton. Check Peter in Detroit. I'll be with the Giants in East Rutherford. And as always, we appreciate you being all in.
Thanks, brother.